Okay, everyone, it is Miss Aberhart again, and this is the instructional video for your baseline assessment number 2 for the week of Monday, September 21st, 2020. All right, let me begin. Hey, Black Child by County Cullen. Hey, Black Child, do you know who you are, who you really are? Do you know you can be what you want to be if you try to be what you can be? Hey, Black Child, do you know where you are going, where you're really going? Do you know you can learn what you want to learn if you try to learn what you can learn? Hey, Black Child, do you know you are strong? I mean really strong. Do you know you can do what you want to do if you try to do what you can do? Hey, Black Child, be what you can be. Learn what you must learn. Do what you can do. And tomorrow your nation will be what you want it to be. All right, so this is the baseline assessment number 2. Before I begin, baseline assessment number 1, here are the correct pronunciation of the words, of 3 words in that text, around the family drum. Pueblo. Pueblo Indians is pronounced Pueblo. 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 Let me repeat it. Pueblo Indians. That's how you pronounce Pueblo Indians. And Tau, the next one was Taos. 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 T-A-O-S is Taos. Pueblo, P as in Paul, U-E-B-L-O, that is pronounced Pueblo. And then Apache Indians is Apache, or A, P as in Paul, A-C-H-E, is pronounced Apache. Apache. So I wanted to make sure that I gave you the correct pronunciation of those words. So Pueblo, Taos, and Apache. Okay, so this is baseline assessment number 2. Obviously, you can't read that text, but I'm going to read it. Baseline assessment number 2. So baseline assessment number 2 has a writing prompt as well, but it also has questions, multiple choice questions. So baseline assessment number 2 does have a writing prompt, but it also has multiple choice questions. So this assessment is worth 115 points. All right, so the title of this text is Departure by Sherwood Anderson. It is a total of 13 paragraphs. All right, paragraph 1. Young George Willard got out of bed at 4 in the morning. It was April and the young tree leaves were just coming out of their buds. The trees along the residence streets in Winesburg are maple and the seeds are winged. When the wind blows, they whirl crazily about, filling the air and making a carpet underfoot. Paragraph 2. George came downstairs into the hotel office carrying a brown leather bag. His trunk was packed for departure. Since 2 o'clock he had been awake, thinking of the journey he was about to take and wondering what he would find at the end of his journey. The boy who slept in the hotel office lay on a cot by the door. His mouth was open and he snored lustily. George crept past the cot and went out into the silent, deserted main street. The east was pink with the dawn, and long streaks of light climbed into the sky where a few stars still shone. Now let me stop here. If you don't already have this in front of you, pause the video and go get this text. I sent this to you in a Word document under the Assignments tab in Teams. So if you are the type of student who needs to hear the story read to you, pause the video, go to the Teams platform, look under assignments, and find this document. All right, paragraph 3. Beyond the last house on Triunion Pike in Winesburg, there is a great stretch of open fields. The fields are owned by farmers who live in town and drive homeward at evening along Triunion Pike in light creaking wagons. In the fields are planted berries and small fruits. In the late afternoon in the hot summers, when the road and the fields are covered with dust, a smoky haze lies over the great flat basin of land. To look across it is like looking out across the sea. In the spring, when the land is green, the effects is somewhat different. The land becomes a wide green billiard table on which tiny human insects toil up and down. Paragraph 4. All through his boyhood and young manhood, George Willard had been in the habit of walking on Triunion Pike. He had been in the midst of the great open place on winter nights when it was covered with snow and only the moon looked down at him. He had been there in the fall when bleak winds blew and on summer evenings when the air vibrated with the song of insects. On the April morning, he wanted to go there again, to walk again in the silence. He did walk to where the road dipped down by a little stream 2 miles from town and then turned and walked silently back again. When he got to Main Street, clerks were sweeping the sidewalks before the stores. "Hey, you, George, how does it feel to be going away?" they asked. Paragraph 5. The westbound train leaves Winesburg at 7:45 in the morning. Tom Little is conductor. His train runs from Cleveland to where it connects with a great trunk line railroad with terminals in Chicago and New York. Tom has what in railroad circles is called an easy run. Every evening he returns to his family. In the fall and spring he spends his Sundays fishing in Lake Erie. He has a round face with small blue eyes. He has a round red face and small blue eyes. He knows the people in the towns along his railroad better than a city man knows the people who live in his apartment building. Paragraph 6. George came down the little incline from the new Willard house at 7 o'clock. Tom Willard carried his bag. The son had become taller than the father. On the station platform, everyone shook the young man's hand. More than a dozen people waited about. Then they talked of their own affairs. Even Will Henderson, who was lazy and often slept until 9, had got out of bed. George was embarrassed. Gertrude Wilmot, a tall, thin woman of 50 who worked in the Winesburg post office, came along the station platform. She had never before paid any attention to George. Now she stopped and put out her hand. In 2 words, she voiced what everyone felt. "Good luck," she said sharply, and then turning went on her way. Paragraph 8. When the train came into the station, George felt relieved. He scampered hurriedly aboard. Helen White came running along Main Street, hoping to have a parting word with him, but he had found a seat and did not see her. When the train started, Tom Little punched his ticket, grinned, and although he knew George well and knew on what adventure he was just setting out, made no comment. Tom had seen 1,000 George Willards go out of their towns to the city. It was a commonplace enough incident with him. In the car, there was a man who had just invited Tom to go on a fishing trip to Sandusky Bay. He wanted to accept the invitation and talk over details. Paragraph 9. George glanced up and down the car to be sure no one was looking, then took out his pocketbook and counted his money. His mind was occupied with a desire not to appear green. Almost the last words his father had said to him concerned the matter of his behavior when he got to the city. "Be a sharp one," Tom Willard had said. "Keep your eyes on your money. Be awake. That's the ticket. Don't let anyone think you're a greenhorn. Paragraph 10. After George counted his money, he looked out of the window and was surprised to see that the train was still in Winesburg. Paragraph 11. The young man, going out of his town to meet the adventures of life, began to think, but he did not think of anything very big or dramatic. Paragraph 12. He thought of little things. Turk Smollett, wheeling boards through the main street of his town in the morning. Butch Wheeler, the lamplighter of Winesburg, hurrying through the streets on a summer evening and holding a torch in his hand. Helen White, standing by a window in the Winesburg post office and putting a stamp on an envelope. The young man's mind was carried away by his growing passion for dreams. One looking at him would not have thought him particularly sharp. With the recollection of little things occupying his mind, he closed his eyes and leaned back in the car seat. He stayed that way for a long time, and when he aroused himself and again looked out of the car window, the town of Winesburg had disappeared, and his life there had become but a background on which to paint the dreams of his manhood. All right, so I just read the text. Now, I didn't include all of the multiple choice questions on this PowerPoint slide, but on this particular side, you see question number 1. Question number 1 has 2 parts. Remember, let me read the directions. There were directions. The directions state, today you will read a short story called Departure by Sherwood Anderson. I just did that. You will then answer several questions based on the text. You will notice as you answer the questions that some of the questions have 2 parts. You should answer part A of the question before you answer part B. Okay. So question number 1 is a multiple choice question, as you can see on the screen. It has 2 parts. Please answer part A first before you answer part B. Because more than likely, if you get part A wrong, you're going to get part B wrong. So make sure you answer part A correctly, or what you believe to be the correct answer. Make sure you answer part A first before you answer part B. So question number 1 and question number 2 has 2 parts. So make sure you pay attention to that. All right. Question number 3 only has 1 part. Question number 4, you're going to complete the chart. Make sure you read the question or the directions carefully for part 4. Part 4, you are completing a chart. Read the directions carefully. So number 4, follow these directions to complete the chart. From the list below, write the qualities that best describe the character of George Willard as he is presented in the passage. Then, support each of your choices by paraphrasing a detail from the passage. Now, I don't have questions 5 and 6 included on this PowerPoint. However, questions 5 and 6 are just 1 part, and they are multiple choice. All right, question 7 is a writing prompt. Now, on the PowerPoint screen, it says that it is optional. It is not optional. It is required that you answer the writing prompt. Now, in the baseline assessment number 1, you've already had exposure to a writing prompt. Now, hopefully you did number 1 first. That way you have exposure and experience with a writing prompt. But if you didn't, here's the writing prompt for baseline assessment number 2. All right. Remember, this is not optional. It is required. The baseline assessment number 2 is worth 115 points. Remember, in my class, you have an entire week to do all your assignments. So the first assignment are your do nows. Your second assignment is baseline assessment number 1. And this is your third assignment, baseline assessment number 2. All right, here's the writing prompt directions. Describe how the author vividly characterizes the town of Winesburg throughout the passage in a way that makes it easy for the reader to understand why George is choosing to leave. Use evidence from the passage to support your response. Your response will be scored on how well you demonstrate your understanding of the ideas of the text. Use evidence from the text to help develop and support your ideas. Organize your response in a logical manner. Demonstrate an appropriate writing style through the use of precise word choice and varied sentences, and use standard conventions for writing. The 2 baseline assessments that I'm giving you this week, that I'm assigning this week, cover all of the Common Core objectives that you're expected to master by the end of 9th grade. So everything that you do in the baseline assessment number 1 and baseline assessment number 2 covers the Common Core objectives that you're expected to know by June of 2021. So I'm assessing whether or not you learned any of these Common Core objectives in 8th grade. If you have, that is wonderful. That means that all I need to do this year is just strengthen that. Make it better for you. If you didn't learn this in 8th grade, no worries. Once I check your baseline assessments, I'll know what I need to teach you. So by June of 2021, you will know what it means to annotate, if you don't know what that means. What it means to use evidence to support your response. What it means to find the central idea. What it means to provide textual evidence. So if you didn't learn these things, or if you don't remember learning these things in 8th grade, after I grade the assessment, I'm going to be able to assess that, and I'll be able to move accordingly with my lesson planning for the remainder of the semester. All right, so this baseline assessment number 2 is worth 115 points. You will receive a Word document of this baseline assessment in the assignments tab on Teams. And I kept saying in the other video that you write on it. Let me stop, because that's that face-to-face stuff. We're not doing face-to-face. You're not writing on this document. You're typing on the document. So I need to change my language. You're typing on the document. Typing on the document, and then you're submitting the typed, you're submitting your answers that you typed on the document. You're submitting that back to me through Teams. All right, so that ends this video. There's one more video I have to do today to explain your 4th assignment for the week, and I will be done recording my videos. So I will definitely talk to you on video number 4.